Welcome to this edition of AARP Massachusetts Fraud Talks Tuesdays. We are here the second Tuesday of each month from 12 to 12:30, where we discuss a different scam and how you can protect yourself and your family from becoming a victim. My name is Sam Doknovich, a volunteer with AARP Massachusetts. Today's topic is fighting misinformation. We are excited to have as our guest today Doug Shadell. Doug is a former fraud investigator and special assistant attorney general with the Washington State Attorney General's Office. He served as the state director for AARP Washington for almost 20 years. Doug has collaborated on educational videos and academic studies and written or co-authored books about fraud, including Weapons of Fraud, Outsmarting the Scam Artists, and The Fraud Fighter's Handbook. He co-authored the 2021 AARP Fraud Frontier Report, one of the largest studies AARP has ever done on consumer fraud. Doug has testified before Congress about the rise of fraud and served as an expert witness in several criminal fraud trials brought by the U.S. Department of Justice. He currently serves as managing director for Fraud Prevention Strategies, LLC, a Seattle-based consulting firm. He can be reached at doug@fraudpreventionstrategies.com, no space between fraud, prevention, or strategies. You may have joined us today with questions already in mind. If you have, please put them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. If questions come up during the presentation, also put them in the Q&A. This session is being recorded. You'll receive a copy of this recording that you can share with friends and family who weren't able to make today's live presentation. So Doug, let's get started. You have interviewed a number of convicted scammers over the years. Can you tell us what you learned from these interviews?
Well, there's plenty we learned from the interviews. The number one thing is we ask, to begin with, these are scammers who were convicted of fraud, and before they get sentenced and go to prison, we contact them or their attorney and say, would you like to talk to AARP about how you did it? Thinking they'd get a lighter sentence, which they never do. But that was the way we reached these people. And we ask them all the same question. What is your strategy for defrauding people? Simple as that. And they all give you the same answer, basically. The first thing is you have to build trust. The second thing is you have to get the victim into a heightened emotional state, which they refer to as ether, get him under the ether. And the third thing is to create some sense of urgency. And so we built like sort of a whole training, which a lot of the fraud fighter volunteers at AARP have been through, which talks about exactly how that works. The ether part is the most interesting, and we back that up now with a lot of studies. The study you mentioned in my introduction, the 2021 fraud study, we surveyed 3,000 people who had all encountered a scam. 2,000 of them were able to resist and not lose money. 1,000 of them lost money. What's the difference between those two? One of the big differences was the people who lost money had experienced some kind of stressful life event just before the encounter. Loss of a spouse, death of a loved one, divorce, some kind of, and who hasn't experienced some kind of a stress like that? But it gave us, it really affirmed what the scammers are saying, is it's easier to manipulate a victim if they are under duress, because that's energy taken away from your ability to defend yourself. So I think that's some of the key learnings is they want to get you under the ether. What they do a lot is they say, everyone has some kind of a emotional Achilles heel, one guy called it. Everybody, all of us have something in our past or our present that when you surface it into awareness, it gets you all riled up. And a lot of times that's what they're looking for. Even more than bank account information, at least at first, is like find that hot button you can push to get them all emotional so you can manipulate them more easily. I'd say those are the key findings.
How is the emergence of artificial intelligence and other technologies making it easier for scammers to steal our money?
Well, technology in general, and this has been going on for a lot longer than the AI craze, which is we're now in, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But technology has made it a lot easier. The fraud game is kind of a numbers game. our studies indicate that between 10 and 15% of any population might lose money to a scam in a given year, which means it's a smaller subset of the general population. Well, back 15, 20 years ago, when I started doing this, longer than that, you'd hear stories about boiler rooms where they'd you ever see that movie Glengarry Glen Ross, where they spend all day manually dialing phone numbers, and they call 200 people. They might get 10 to talk to them, and they might get one to listen. Now you press a button with robocall technology and VoIP technology, voice over the internet protocol technology. You press a button and you dial 250,000 names right away. I talked to a guy last week because I monitor, I do some consulting for this company called Nomorobo, and we monitor 300,000 phone lines. And I have the ability to go and barge into any one of those calls and take it as though I'm interested. And so I took one that was the fake Spectrum. You know, you press a button, 250,000 phone calls go out. Hi, this is Spectrum, and you are eligible for a 50% discount on your phone bill. Press one for more information, right? And I ended up talking to this guy, the scammer, and for some reason he went out of character. He realized I wasn't really interested. And so I said, well, how long have you been scamming people? And he goes, oh, about 11 years. Really? Are you pretty good at it? Are you happy with it? Oh, yes, very much so. And he ended up telling me about this. What's the campaign you're running right now? I answered this Spectrum call, and he goes, yeah, we're dialing 250,000 phone numbers. Well, how many of those people pick up? About 11,500. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that would be about 4 or 5%. And if you had to dial that many manually, it would take you months, right? Just do it with the press of a button. So that's one thing. The AI problem is, deep fakes are a technology where they can take it started with famous people, right? I have videos that I show in my workshop of Anderson Cooper, Elon Musk, uh, Jeff Bezos, people who are in the news, the president of the United States. We have a recording of a fake Joe Biden calling people to tell them that they've won the Publishers Clearinghouse Prize, if you can believe that. And that particular call we intercepted about 2.5 years ago during the pandemic. And I remember thinking and it's not a very good recording. It's his voice, but it's kind of patchy and not that well put together. And I remember thinking at the time, this is the canary in the coal mine. They're an early adopter of this technology, and it's going to get better. Well, fast forward to earlier this year in New Hampshire, and some of you may have heard this story, where they did Joe Biden deep fake again, only this time they were calling the night before the election in a voter suppression effort to try and get Democrats not to turn out in the Republican primary so that Trump would get more votes and so forth. They caught that guy, they threw the book at him. But if you compare those two recordings from 2.5 years ago to really now, it's gotten so much better that it's almost impossible to tell what's real and what isn't. And we can talk later about what the technology solutions to that might be. But the main thing is, don't assume just because the voice is famous or you're familiar that it's really them.
And one of the things I learned in my own life is that I need to have a secret word that only my family knows. So if they call up and I hear a voice of my family member on the phone and it's my son or my daughter-in-law asking for help because they got into a car crash, I'll say, what is the secret word?
That's
And
a
if
good
they
idea.
don't know it, then it's a nice, simple thing. And I'm not going to tell the audience on this call what my secret word is.
Right, because they might try and call you.
Exactly, very scary. So you've analyzed thousands of undercover fraud recordings. Can you tell us how that came about and what you learned from that research?
Well, we started this 20 years ago. We got a hold of about 600 undercover recordings from the Ohio Attorney General's office. This is where they identify a victim, typically a senior, who's getting bombarded with calls. They forward that line of that person into an investigator who pretends to do kind of the stuff I'm doing now, where I'm pretending to be the consumer. We analyze those calls to try and identify what kind of persuasion tactics are they employing. And then fast forward to today with these Nomo Robo tape, the Nomo Robo people not only block millions of these calls, but they record and transcribe them all. And so we have millions of recordings now to analyze. And we're still analyzing the current crop. But I can tell you just preliminarily, one big thing that's changed is back in the day, 90% of those calls were what I would call promise of financial gain. You've won the Publishers Clearinghouse, you could get a 10-to-1 return on your investment, all just like you could save money on a timeshare or a vacation or whatever. And those we get those calls today, but 50% of the fraud calls today, so 10% back then, 50% of the calls today are what I would call the threat of loss. There's a virus on your computer. This is your grandson, and I'm in prison. Somebody's hacked into your Amazon account. Fear-based approaches have swelled. And I don't know the reason for it. Maybe it's just that we live in a very anxious world. Maybe it's that they've read Daniel Kahneman and loss aversion theory, and they understand that, if you only have one call to get somebody's attention, scare the crap out of them. That will get their attention. But that's, I'd say, a big difference we've seen is much more scary stuff. And almost to the point where if you get a call or a voicemail and you don't know if it's a scam or not, if they're saying there's something horrible about to happen, a double red flag should go up. And you can always independently check the veracity of a call like that. If somebody calls you, a really common one that we see is the fake Amazon. That's got to be 20% of the scam calls we see right now. Or, Spectrum, fake Xfinity. And if you wonder whether there really is a false charge on your Amazon account, don't respond to that robocaller. Hang up on them, delete it, but then check your Amazon account. And I think we're going to talk later about holiday scams. This is really prevalent during the holidays because everybody's ordering from Amazon right now. I mean, they do all year, which is why it's a scam all year. But come the holidays, I don't know about you, but a lot of the presents we buy, that's how we buy them. So I'd say that's sort of a summary of what we learned.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think that scammers are like other professionals, if you want to call them that. Like, as you learn, the guy who is happy that he's been a scammer for 11 years and defrauding people, they're always honing their craft and getting better at addressing the specific successes they've had and trying to make more of them. So you gave us some good example of the hottest scams going on right now. Are there any other particular examples of hot scams you want to bring to the attention of the attendees?
Yeah, I think one to look out for is, and if you guys, if this has happened to any of you, put it in the chat, but um, what's really grown lately, even more so than before, are tech support scams. A tech support scam starts with a message that pops up on your computer that says there's a virus on your computer. Don't turn off your computer. And sometimes there's a siren going off too, right? You talk about a scare tactic, a fear tactic. And if you're not familiar with computers or, insecure about whether it's true or not, there's a number to call. It's the Microsoft support line or whatever, the Apple support line. If you call that number, you're going to get a boiler room in Pakistan or India or somewhere, and it's just a bunch of thieves on the other end of the line. And they're going to tell you, yeah, this is Microsoft support. We have been monitoring your computer, and we noticed that hackers have invaded your computer. Now, we can fix this, but we have to remote access in to fix it. And you might say, not knowing any better, you might say, okay, what do I do? And they walk you through downloading this software like TeamViewer or AnyDesk or whatever, that allows them to remote access into your computer. You never want to do that, obviously. I mean, it's okay to have remote access if you've initiated contact. I've done this many times myself with Apple support. You contact Apple support. I can't fix this problem. They remote access in, then it goes away. What you want to avoid is the panic from this pop-up. And you might ask, two questions. One, how did it get there? And two, how do I remove it? What should I do? How it got there is you might have been on a Facebook most likely Facebook, but it could have been something else. You click on an ad that has nothing to do with Microsoft, the viruses or anything, like a dog food ad. And in that dog food ad is embedded a little piece of JavaScript that downloads onto your hard drive and creates this pop-up either immediately or a week from now. Um, but it's perfectly benign as long as you don't call the number and let them into your computer. And the solution is to just power off your computer, even though they're telling you not to. Don't listen to them. Power up, hold the power key down for 5 seconds and reboot, or unplug it for 5 seconds and replug it in. And then it goes away and it's not coming back. That's the way to fix it. What you don't want to do is call the number and start talking to these people, because then they're the ones hacking in to all of your accounts. And that was their goal to begin with.
So scammers are getting smarter, leveraging technology. So now we need to give the home team some more defense that they can use to prevent them from being scammed. So what are some smart ways you can recommend to avoid becoming a scam victim?
Yeah. Um, there's sort of a list of, I call it hardening the target. It's sort of like there's hardening the target and there's monitoring. Hardening the target means what technology is out there that's inexpensive or even free that I can employ to, so that I don't have to make this hard choice. Is this really Amazon or is it something else? One is obviously a call blocking app, and it doesn't have to be Nomo Robo. There's several call blocking apps out there. But the way that app works is, um, you put it on your phone and they have a block list. Whenever they identify an illegal robocall, they put it into this block list database. And when I call you, Dennis, on the phone, before the phone rings, if you have this app, it will compare my incoming number to the block list. And if there's a match, it blocks it. And if there's not a match, it lets it through. And you can put your contact list in there so that your contacts can get through, right? That's how most of these companies work now. And it really does. I mean, I have Nomo Robo and I don't get hardly anything anymore. So that's one way. Another way is things like bank monitoring. I'm really big on bank monitoring. Everyone should, first of all, have online banking. And if you're afraid of it, get a relative or somebody you trust to help you set it up. If you wait until the end of the month for that paper statement to come, a lot can happen. And let me give you an example of what happened to me last week. Last week, I have one credit card, one bank account, and on both it has a monitoring alert that says anytime there's any activity, I want an email, even if it's me doing it. Well, you don't know who's doing it, but anyone who's doing, okay. So I get this alert last Wednesday that says somebody just charged $1,200 on your bank card for a Southwest Airlines ticket. Okay, it's not me. Within 60 seconds of getting that, I'm calling the Bank of America. Within 5 minutes, they're canceling my credit card and issuing me a new number and taking the $1,200 off of my account, right? If I had waited till I got a paper statement at the end of the month, those 30 days, I still theoretically could have dealt with it, but who knows, right? How many more charges there'd be, whether the bank would release it or not. And so bank monitoring is really important, and those alerts are really important. It's completely free because the banks, they don't want fraud to happen, right? I would say that's a big one. And while we're on the subject of bank statements, go paperless. Even if you don't care about the planet, don't go paperless. Why? Because there are still people out there who send meth addicts around, stealing your mail out of your mailbox so that they can hack your identity. I know this because I've interviewed some of those scammers that I interviewed. Two of them were meth addicts, ID thieves, and this is not that long ago. So by going paperless, you just don't get there. Nothing comes into your mailbox. And if you insist on it coming into your mailbox, for God's sake, get a locking mailbox. I still have people on my street here, which I won't name, um, who've lived here for 35 years and they still don't have a locking mailbox. So, yeah, there's simple things you can do like that. Also, I would just say a general prevention thing during the holidays. I mean, we could go over all the way things to look for, but one overarching thing is, remember the study we talked about how stressful events make you more vulnerable to scams? Well, who isn't stressed during the holidays? It might be good stress, it might be happy stress, but people are really wired during the holidays. And it's really important to be especially cautious and maybe slower in decisions about buying stuff than you might be otherwise. Here are some of the things that we got last year. We did a survey of what are the most common holiday scams, and porch pirates is one. Be very careful about when you order those Amazon or whatever it is, that you have somebody around to pick up those boxes, because this time of year, gangs will drive around and they'll even follow the UPS truck driver and wait for him to drop something interesting, right? That's, I'd say, one thing. There are a lot of fake texts that will go out that says, we tried to deliver something, but you weren't home. And so click on this link. Anytime there's an offer to click on a link that is, again, not something you initiated, red flag should go off, and never click on the link, because it's not that it will, if you click on the link, it'll download a virus and your computer will blow up. Sometimes maybe, but the bigger problem with it is it's going to send you to a fake website that looks exactly like UPS or exactly like Amazon. It's so easy to fake. And according to the anti-phishing working group, I don't remember the acronym, but they monitor the creation of fake phishing websites. And it's about 100,000 a day globally. It's so easy to create a fake website. And so then you text a bunch of people, or robocall a bunch of people, and that's virtually free. And if you even get 1% clicking on it, and I've done this before where I've clicked on, my technology friends have a way of clicking on these where it doesn't risk infecting anything. And it's just amazing. It's like one of them was my bank. Um, and all they do is take a screen grab of the real bank web page and then just steal it and just pretend that is their bank. One other thing I want to mention, uh, we do this whole presentation on AI, and I mentioned the famous people are the biggest victims. I found a YouTube video last week. About a month ago, I got this fraud alert from CNBC. Someone has infiltrated Tesla's YouTube site, and there's a deep fake of Elon Musk selling cryptocurrency, and it's going on right now. And I actually went onto YouTube, found it, and did a screen grab and got it. And this video looks exactly like Elon Musk. And what he's doing is saying, we are offering a 2-to-1 return right now on cryptocurrency. So if you call us and you invest one, whatever unit is of cryptocurrency, we'll match it 2-to-1. So click on this QR code. And if you click on the QR code, it'll do what? It'll take you to a fake phishing website that'll look like, probably Elon Musk again. And the whole thing's a scam. But I was just shocked by how much it looked exactly like him and how convincing it was. So you really got to be watching out for those.
Well, what I like about what you're telling the audience is that it's not all about technology you need. There's a lot of common sense, like taking your time and not being giving into the panic and not responding when strangers enter your house, whether they enter through the phone line, the text line, or your email line, locking your mailbox. That's so old world, low
Yeah.
tech. But are there any technology solutions that our audience should know about that could help them prevent fraud? And then we'll go to see how many questions we have in the Q&A. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A.
Well, one thing that comes up a lot when we talk about this is, should I get a separate antivirus program for my computer to like double protect me? And the advice, one of my colleagues, Dave Morrow, who had a lot more experience than I did on this, said he advises against doing that. Almost virtually all computers that you buy now have a pretty sophisticated antivirus. They have a firewall. They have an antivirus software on them. Microsoft Defender is a really well developed defense against a lot of this stuff. The trick to it, and if you buy, a supplemental one, virus protection thing, sometimes it will interfere with the computer that you've already got defense system. That was Dave's take on it, and I trust his view. But the thing you got to remember to make that technology work is you have to update it all the time. There's always patches and the thing about patches, when Microsoft says, we found a defect in XYZ program, so download this patch to fix it, they're not just telling their customers that, they're telling every scammer and hacker in the world about it. So it really is important if you get those notes to download the patches. And the simplest thing is just, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had tell my computer, if when there's an update, just download it at 3 o'clock in the morning automatically, so I don't have to remember.
So looking at the questions, we have a really good question that involves voice cloning. A lot of phone calls lately that say, there's noise on the line, but can you hear me? I assume that they want to record you saying yes for voice cloning. Can you
Nah,
address that question and maybe this voice cloning issue more in detail?
I've had conversations with the founder of No More Robo, Aaron Foss, who's been in this tele scam world longer than I have. Well, he's been in the telecommunications world. And we sort of concluded that there's folklore out there that is not true, that they're just trying to get you to say yes. And oh, I copied you saying yes. And then they convert that into some kind of charge on your credit card. We've never really seen that happen. I can see why you'd be suspicious. But the thing that's going on now is voice cloning is a danger. If you go on TikTok, what I worry about is somebody's going to go on TikTok and tape record my 23-year-old daughter's voice, and then, as you and I were talking off camera, Dennis, they use that to call me and say that she's in trouble, and that's where maybe your secret word is a good defense. But the other thing that's going on is banks are offering you the opportunity to record your voice for their records. And when I first heard this, I'm like, no, that's got to be a scam. But Aaron says, no, that's the technology exists now. It's a protection. Because if your bank has an authentic recording of your voice that's really high res, high quality recording, if somebody comes in and tries to clone it and authorize something on your bank account, they have a voice to compare it to. And that is a defense. So it might be one idea is to contact your bank and say, do you have this technology where I can record my voice directly with you? And then if somebody tries to fake my voice, you'll have a comparison. Most of them are doing this now. So
That's excellent advice. Well, we're almost to the end of our half hour. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. So do you have a summary pep talk for the attendees? What three
Well, actually,
important messages you want
Sam,
to leave them with?
Sam,
Oh,
there are a couple other
oh,
questions. This is
oh, they
one.
just popped in. Go, Dennis.
Okay, one, I am embarrassed to admit that I got the Amazon call. He wanted Apple gift cards, and after all the info, I was aware that I fell for it. Fortunately, my cell phone battery died at the end. So people are experiencing these. Um, and Lois wrote, this happened to me recently. I got an email from Equifax about my account being compromised. I immediately contacted the FTC and contacted other companies ASAP to cancel my credit card, bank card, etc. But I had already put a freeze alert on my account.
good. Those are all good things to do. I failed to mention the gift card thing. That is always a red flag. Anytime you're paying anything we only take gift cards. Um, you know, I wish we could get a law change that would make issuers of gift cards responsible like the banks are for credit cards, but for some reason they don't want to do that. So
Diane has a question too. Diane says, "How do I stop salesmen coming to my home, ringing the doorbell, and waiting to sell me energy efficient solar panels or other items.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a big robocall too, by the way, lead generation for solar panels. Um, I think if you have a big no soliciting sign and the recording of a really large dog, so when someone knocks at I mean, I have these two yappy young dogs, and they sales drives the salesman away every time. I don't know that there may be a local ordinance against door-to-door solicitation where you live, and you might want to check that. And if there isn't, propose that they get one, you know?
Yeah, I like the giant sign that I've seen on some ones. Beware of dog or beware of attack dog. So
Yeah,
we just shoot people
totally.
away. Well, they're very
Yeah,
low tech, but effective.
I agree with you, Sam.
Any other questions, Dennis?
No, that looks like it. So now we have, I just put a resource slide. There are a couple of AARP videos out there, one on how to protect yourself from AI, um, and one why nobody is immune to scams. So they're about a 9-minute video each. We also have a link to all the previous Fraud Talk Tuesdays that we've done over the last year. And if you ever encounter a scam or want to know if something is a scam, you can always call the AARP Fraud Watch helpline at 877-908-3360, and they can help you identify what the steps are you should do next going forward to keep you and your money safe from scammers. And at the very bottom, we have a quick note that if you have been victimized by a scam and you would like to share your story on one of our Fraud Talk Tuesdays, we would love to hear from you. And you can contact Polly Mendoza at the email address that is here on the screen. So we're going to send this slide out to you.
Yeah, so everyone who's attending will get a copy of the recording and get a copy of the links. So thanks, Doug, for sharing your insight and experiences. And remember, next month, our Fraud Talk Tuesday will be an update on scams targeting veterans and their families. If you are a veteran or know a veteran, this topic will provide some valuable and actionable information. So please join us on November 12th at 12 noon. And remember, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam.